Good morning. I'd like to call the board meeting to order. Please rise for the invocation. O God, we pray to administer that which is just in all educational policies, being ever mindful of your guidance, stir us to action with love, wisdom, and understanding. The Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we begin the meeting today, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge some individuals for their unsung heroism during yesterday's snowstorm. First of all, to the emergency responders and medical professionals who tended to our injured students and others out on the slick roads, thank you. We are grateful that Aaron, Taylor, and Kristen are all back home to heal. To the principals and assistant principals who were out shoveling walkways and giving cars an extra push to ensure parents and students got to and from school safely, I thank you for your servant leadership. To the bus drivers who so carefully drove our students to and from school yesterday, thank you for your commitment to student safety. To our teachers who drove into work from all over Maryland, thank you for your dedication to your students and your employer. To our custodial and food service staff, thank you for making sure our students and staff had clear walkways, a warm classroom, and a hot meal. You're a vital part of our team. To the parents and grandparents who wrote or called to voice your concerns about AACPS weather-related decisions, thank you for taking the time to reach out to us. As Dr. Martin Luther King once said, our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. Rest assured your voices were heard, and the board has already met with Dr. Arlato and members of his executive team this morning to share your concerns and help ensure better protocols are in place should something like that happen again. And last but not least, to Dr. Arlato and his leadership team. It's tempting for all of us who weren't involved in the decision to be armchair quarterbacks, but what I know for sure is that you all made the decision you felt was best with the advice you had at the time. Yesterday was a fumble, but today is a new day. Thank you all for your dedication to the students of AACPS. The first item on our agenda is approval of the minutes. All those in favor? Motion passes 7-0-0. Item 2.04, establishing agenda order. Mrs. Nally?
I move that the board take item 4.12, sabbaticals, out of order and consider the item after 4.02, personnel.
All those in favor? Motion passes 7-0-0. Item 2.05, recognitions. There will be no recognitions today. Item 2.06, Educator of the Month, Mrs. Ritchie.
The Anne Arundel County Public Schools Department of Student Services provides a variety of services to our students in a number of ways. School counselors, school psychologists, school social workers, pupil personnel workers, and school nurses are all part of the team that provide these much-needed services. Oftentimes, these critical services are provided on the spur of the moment when unexpected trauma occurs, or so our people need to be well prepared and be able to react professionally and calmly. One such employee is our Educator of the Month for January, school psychologist Selena Oliver, whose principal stated, Selena Oliver has been an excellent addition to Chesapeake High School for a number of years. Her strengths have complemented our strong counseling department. Ms. Oliver is a master of organization and coordination. These traits were most apparent during her handling of a school-wide trauma response where she served as the on-site trauma coordinator for the mental health services needed by Chesapeake students. During 3 difficult times within a short period of time, each involving the death of a student, Selena was critical in organizing resources, coordinating services to staff and students, and was an overall calming factor in a very difficult situation. Not only is Selena a skilled mental health clinician, Her organization and leadership skills have greatly assisted the Chesapeake team in helping students adjust after such traumatic events like the loss of a classmate. Miss Oliver has proven herself to be a strong leader in other areas as well, such as her mentoring in the PBIS program, her dedication and creativity during Cougar Care Week, and her support of the suicide prevention program training at her school. She has served as a mentor to school psychologists in training and has fostered the growth of interns in the high school community. One of Selena's unique talents is linked to technology. She has been instrumental in leading school psychologists in the use of iPads to collect and review data, enhance counseling strategies, and administer psychological tests. Her technological skills have helped position the school psychologist of Anne Arundel County on the forefront of leveraging technology tools to serve students effectively in the 21st century. Selena Oliver, you provide a critical service to the students of Chesapeake High School. Not only are you very effective in what you do, you perform the valuable service of helping other school psychologists become effective as well. You display numerous qualities that make you a valued member of the Office of Psychology Services, and we commend you and congratulate you on being chosen as Educator of the Month for January 2015. Please join me up front.
Good morning. We have this lovely certificate and this bell with your name engraved on it. Yeah. How did we get you here this morning?
The seat.
That seems to be the forte for this.
Yes, no, wonderful. I love working for this organization. I love working for my boss.
And is your boss here today?
She is, Dr. Barbara Schwartz.
Good.
And I love working with our students.
Great,
So
wonderful. Thank you very much. And who is here with you today?
My 3 sons,
Hey.
they're all headed for college.
Oh, great.
So it's good timing.
Oh, wonderful. Great. Well, thank you very much for all that you do and the
Thank you.
services that you provide. Selena, if you can wait until after our CAC report, we're going to take some pictures. The next item is 2.07, Employee of the Month, Mrs. Birch.
Thank you. Busy, busy, always busy. That's how our Employee of the Month for January has been described by her colleagues at Westmead Early Education Center. Linda Acheron, pre-kindergarten teacher assistant, spends her morning before bus duty getting ready for each day. If she isn't copying a lesson plan or cutting out paper for a student project, she's setting things out in preparation for her students' arrival. Once she takes care of bus duty in her caring and compassionate way with her students, she's ready to start her day, offering amazing support to her teacher and to her students. Linda never puts off a task. If she has a pile of paperwork to copy, she will use any free moment to do so and then jump right back into supporting the kids. She is a real troubleshooter. Being the lead teaching assistant in the building, she works hard to keep all of the assistants informed about trainings they need to attend, duties they're responsible for, and just making sure the assistants are comfortable in their positions and that jobs are getting done. Linda Acheron works closely with both the ECI assistant and the other pre-K assistant, always ready and willing to offer assistance in any way she can. If one of her colleagues is out, she can be seen jumping back and forth between the 2 classrooms to ensure that both teachers have the support they need. Linda has a wonderful rapport with her students, working one-on-one when needed. She teaches the literacy small group each day and thoughtfully carries out the lessons, and then provides feedback and observations with her teacher on specific students. Her observations are very valuable to her teacher in planning future lessons. Linda takes the safety of her students very seriously. She's always checking that shoelaces are tied and that students enter and exit the school bus properly. She even makes sure that her students know their bus number in case of an emergency situation. As the social committee chair, she organizes staff events such as baby or bridal showers and coordinates the Giving Tree with Sarah's House during the holidays. She's always excited about this event as it gives her the opportunity to help those in need, which is only fitting being that Linda is a very giving person herself. She is kind and compassionate and uses both of these personality traits within the work environment with both colleagues and students alike. Linda Acheron, you are a well-respected member of the Westmead EEC community. You display a high degree of willingness to assist staff members and students, and your professionalism does not go unnoticed. So for these reasons and more, the Board of Education is pleased to recognize you as Employee of the Month for January 2015. Congratulations. Would you please join me up front?
How did they get you here today?
Well, they told me it was a meeting about a pre-K meeting.
Okay, well, so it is about pre-K now because it's about you now.
Thank you.
So here's the bell
Thank you
with
so
your
much.
name on it and a certificate
Thank you.
recognizing all that you do for our
Thank
kids. And who came here to be with you today?
I have my principal, Ms. Janisco, Linda Best, our secretary, my partner in crime, Heidi Krinsky, the other pre-K assistant, and my husband, who I thought was going to a business meeting. I guess it is a business meeting.
Apparently he knew something you
He
did
did,
today.
and he kept a secret.
Good for him.
Yeah, I know, good for him, it's great.
Well, congratulations.
Thank
And
you
thank
so
you
much.
so much for all
I love
that
what
you
I do.
for our kids.
I
Good.
love what I do. Thank you all very
Thank
much.
you very much.
Thank you.
Item 2.08 is Volunteer of the Month, but she is not here, so we will move on to 2.09 School and Community Highlights. And I guess with the winter break, we don't have any school or community highlights today. So 2.10 CAC report.
Good morning, Dr. Arlotto, President Korbalek, and members of the board. For the record, I'm Lisa Shore. And we sort of pulled this report together at the last minute, so I'm actually sort of talking as a private citizen, but I did want to get the word out about the Read With Me Challenge that we are doing in conjunction with the Anne Arundel County Public Library. So I'm sort of representing CAC and sort of representing the public library, and just want to get the word out because it's a really cool initiative. We do have an equity team working closely with Mr. Alston's office, and we have started a partnership with Anne Arundel County Library called the Read With Me Challenge. Goals for this program are to encourage children to read, to increase awareness within the home and the community of the benefits of reading aloud to young children, and to increase the number of children signing up for library cards. Most importantly, this program hopes to encourage children to read, which is shown by research to be a critical key to school success. This initiative encourages people to read to a child, to take a photo, and to post it to Twitter with the school's hashtag. And don't ask me how all that works because I'm new to Twitter, but I'm starting to understand it. Special recognitions are planned for schools that are most active in supporting the initiative. And both the Glen Burnie and the Annapolis Regional Libraries are doing special programs this Saturday to support this initiative. I want to bring your attention to this because of the positive energy and excitement generated by this partnership. Schools have been posting their Twitter feeds. The libraries are developing special displays in their branches of suggested book titles, and the positive energy is just growing and growing for this. It's a great example of how the community can be engaged to help support our schools and to help eliminate the achievement gap. Please keep an eye out for these posters. They're going to be at all the library branches and any other possible public places we can think of putting them. Post a Twitter photo, share the excitement and the energy about this program, and most importantly, help us share the excitement about reading by taking the time to read to a child. Thank you for your support.
Thank you, Lisa. We're going to take a 10-minute break for photos with our Educator and Employee of the Month, and we'll be back for public comment. We're now ready to begin public comment. Anyone wishing to speak on an item not on today's agenda may offer testimony during this public comment portion of the meeting. Speakers will be allotted 3 minutes each, and the board asks that comments remain civil and appropriate for the various audiences that may be watching or viewing the meeting. Student-specific and personnel matters are confidential and cannot be discussed in this forum. This time is intended for speakers to voice their opinion and not necessarily as a question and answer period. Speakers may pose questions, but answers will be counted toward the 3-minute allotment. For the record, please give your name before speaking. Handouts should be given to our board assistant. I'll call the names that I have for cards. We have James Rosenthal and William Rice.
My name is James Rosenthal, and I'm an emergency physician. I've lived in Anne Arundel County since 1994, and my comments are addressed to Superintendent Arlotto. Notwithstanding the remarks by President Korbalak about yesterday's difficulties, it's clear to me that the command decision that you made to open the schools was a poor one, and I think that it can be seen not only retrospectively but prospectively to have been a poor decision. You put the lives of the most vulnerable citizens of Anne Arundel County, those from the age of 5 to 18, at risk by your decision to keep the schools open. The Montgomery County public schools were closed, the PG County schools were closed, the Calvert County schools were closed. I won't run through the whole list. What I'd like to do is ask you to explain your decision process in keeping the schools open and what you propose to do and your colleagues up here propose to do in reviewing the protocols that I understand were used to keep the schools open. I read the apology that you made that was forwarded to me by President Korbalak last night in my email. That's nice, but it isn't enough. As somebody who's practiced emergency medicine since 1985, I'm intimately familiar with the consequences of decisions such as yours. Now, I don't think anybody was maimed for life or killed in yesterday's mayhem. You can chalk that up to good luck, but you shouldn't chalk it up to your good judgment.
Thank you, Dr. Rosenthal. I appreciate, I did read the email that you sent yesterday afternoon, and I appreciate you coming forward. It's, as Ms. Korbalak said in her statement earlier, it's an important topic. The safety and security of our students and staff is an important topic. I made a bad call yesterday. I did not make that call with the intent of injuring students, putting them at danger, or our staff at risk. That was not my intent. I believe, based on the information I had, that I was making the right decision at the time. That turned out to be a bad decision. I've got other colleagues around the area that also opened, and they are making similar apologies to their communities because they made a bad decision as well. I had no idea the weather was going to turn the way it did as early as it did, despite the forecast that we had. That's an explanation. That does not, in any way, shape, or form, lessen the burden that is on me and lessen how badly I am feeling about the decision that I made, because students did get injured on their way to school yesterday, and staff weren't able to get in, and some did get in. This is, I have learned very quickly over time, a very humbling job, Dr. Rosenthal. It is humbling first and foremost because I am around people that care about children every day. Teachers, our custodians and staff, our bus drivers, those our principals and assistant principals. We have, and including this board, we've got people that care about children every day. and do great things on behalf of children, and it's very humbling to be in the position that I'm in to be around them. The other is that I find out, and this is part of what you referenced, is it's also very humbling to know that the decision stops at your desk. And I make hundreds of decisions a day. Some of them people would say are good decisions, and some of them were not. Yesterday was not a good decision. But please understand, I'm saying this to you as I look at you in the audience, and I want everybody to hear it, it was not made with the intent of hurting any of our children. I thought I was making, in my 28 years as an educator, making a decision that I thought we could get our students into school safely based on the reports that I had, and that by the time school finished, the weather would have cleared by 11:30 or noon, as was predicted, and we could get everybody home safely. That was part of my thought process, along with other things. That was part of my thought process. So I appreciate you bringing that up. I'm glad to have the opportunity to talk with you or others further about it. I have debriefed with my team throughout the day yesterday, as well as late yesterday afternoon. We'll do the same today. And each day we have predicted weather concerns. I have changed some of our internal protocols as of yesterday afternoon with my team, and I was briefed by the board and asked questions by the board first thing this morning at their request. Thank you.
I'll make one other comment, if I may. And I appreciate you, you all giving me the chance to make these comments. In our line of work, the first rule in Latin is primum non nocere, and that means first, do no harm. And you, all of you, should bear that firmly in mind and emulate that rule. First, do no harm. Thank you.
Thank you. Is Mr. Rice in the audience?
Yes.
Okay.
Good morning. The letter that I'm about to read was provided to your staff person who can give you a copy at the appropriate time, as well as provided to the principal at Broadneck Senior High School. I'm here at on behalf really of my son, Darian. And this is a request for the waiver of the out-of-county tuition payment. I'm going to read from the letter just real quick. This letter requests that the spring semester out-of-county tuition payment relating to my son Darian Rice Sr. at Broadneck High School be waived due to parental financial hardship. My name is William Rice, and my son attends Broadneck. He's scheduled to graduate this coming May 2015. Just to give you an insight as to the quality of student that Darian is, I'd first like to state that he's ranked 8th in a class of 550 at Broadneck. He had a cumulative score of 2290 on the SAT with a perfect 800 in math. He's taken 5 AP exams. He scored 5 on 4 of them, those including Calculus AB, Calculus BC, English Language, and History, and he scored a 4 on the AP Spanish. And he's received all A's since the 7th grade. But the accomplishments that he's most proud of is, one, he's a few months from becoming an Eagle Scout, and secondly, he's been accepted under the early action decision process at Stanford University. His mother and I find it difficult to make the payments simply because we have an older son who's at the University of Miami, and we owe them $12,000 this coming semester. So we're just finding it difficult to juggle the two. We're very proud of our children. We have another child who's a senior at BOE High School, and he's been accepted at Dartmouth. We're very proud of our kids. We really stress education, and it's not simply a matter of him staying there just to graduate, but it's also about him staying there because all of his friends are there. Talking about graduation, prom, for him to transfer to Bowie his last year's semester, he knows no one there other than his brother and a couple other friends. Prom would be an issue. I mean, there'd be all kinds of issues and so forth. And I think it would be a tremendous disappointment in his education and just in him as a person in not graduating from Broadneck. So I would hope that this board would understand the severity of this issue and render a decision of, at least, if not waiving the fee, at least providing some type of relief in terms of amount or time frame in which it's due. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Mr. Rice, if you would, I'm not particularly familiar with the case. If you would take a minute to step outside with our Assistant Superintendent, Ms. Pelham,
yes.
To get some of the specifics. You should
yes,
be very proud of your children.
Yes, sir.
And your
Thank
son in particular at Broadneck. And if you would step out and meet with her and get some specifics, that would be great.
And Broadneck's doing an excellent job. I mean, he loves it there and so forth.
It's a fine place. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I don't have any additional public comment cards. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the board at this time? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to action items. Item 4.01, administrative personnel appointments. Dr. Arlato, your recommendation, please.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend that the personnel listed on the attached sheet be promoted and or appointed.
Is there any discussion? Or there's no motion? You moved. Any discussion? All those in favor? Item passes 700. Item 4.02, personnel actions. Dr. Arlato, your recommendation?
Yes, ma'am. I recommend that the board approve the actions as stipulated on the attached sheets.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion passes 700. We now have item 4.12, sabbatical leave. Dr. Arlato, your recommendation.
I am.
We moved it.
Okay. I am recommending the. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. I'm looking at the wrong one. I recommend sabbatical leave request be approved. Thank you.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Motion passes 700. The next item on the agenda is 4.03, Superintendent's recommendation on redistricting Annapolis area. This is an action item. I would like to remind everyone present and those watching that the vote today is a vote only to take the superintendent's recommendation and any other redistricting proposals put forth by individual board members, which garner 5 votes, to public hearing, so that citizens will have an opportunity to express their opinion on the matter to the board. If the board votes today to take an item to public hearing, the hearing will be held on March 5th here in the boardroom. Per board policy, the final vote on this redistricting action must occur prior to April 30th, 2015. With that, Dr. Arlato, do you have a presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
For the record, Alex Shaknovich, Chief Operating Officer.
Scott Schuler, Student Demographics and Planning Specialist.
Larry Albert, Supervisor of Planning, Design, and Construction.
And we are here to present item 4.03, which is an action item this morning regarding the superintendent's redistricting recommendations for the Annapolis area. While there is no presentation, Madam President, please allow me to read the superintendent's recommendation into the record. In accordance with Board of Education Policy, GAA, the superintendent is required to submit his recommendation to the Board of Education and did so on December 10th of 2014. And as you stated, Ms. Korbelak, the board is required at this meeting under policy JAA to identify which proposals, if any, or any additional board proposals will go forward to a public briefing and public hearing process. The superintendent's recommendation for redistricting are as follows, and they are to take effect for the school year 2016-2017. With respect to the United States Naval Academy, and regarding the unification of the United States Naval Academy student population into a single elementary school, the superintendent agreed with the recommendation of the committee and recommends no redistricting. With respect to Admiral Cochran Drive, redistricting all properties located along and feeding into Admiral Cochran's Drive between Riva Road and Solomon's Island Road from the South River High School feeder district to the Annapolis High School feeder district. The superintendent concurs with the committee's recommendation and is recommending no redistricting at this time. And finally, with respect to the Tyler Heights, Eastport, and Germantown elementary schools. In order to provide relief for Tyler Heights Elementary School and utilize the capacity that will be constructed at both Eastport and Georgetown East Elementary Schools, the superintendent is recommending the adoption of the redistricting committee's additional scenario known as option 10. Specifically, It will move the community of the Reserve at Quiet Waters, known as Neighborhood A, from Tyler Heights Elementary School into Georgetown East Elementary School. Secondly, it would move the community of Harbor House, known as Neighborhood R, out of Tyler Heights Elementary School and into Eastport Elementary School. That concludes an overview of the superintendent's recommendation, and we're open to any questions you might have.
All right, to clarify, we would be, under this recommendation, we would be bringing forward just option 10 to public hearing. Correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Mrs. Nally.
I move to amend the superintendent's recommendation by adding Admiral Cochrane Drive as another alternative for 2016-2017.
Is there any discussion? Mr. Jackson?
I absolutely support whether it's an amendment or whether it's a second option. Doesn't really make me a difference, but I don't differ in which way we do it. But at the end of the day, I think it's time for us to act on ensuring that we take care of the Admiral Cochrane Drive portion so that some other business can go forth. Thank you.
Mr. Webb?
Actually, this has to do with the proposal for Tyler Heights. What's the cost for the buses and the number of buses that proposal requires?
The superintendent's recommendation is essentially cost neutral.
Cost neutral?
Essentially, yes. We've analyzed the transportation implications. I believe the Board of Education was provided information relative to that after the last redistricting related meeting in December. If you recall, Mr. Webb, that the delay of the redistricting scenario to the 2016-2017 year, in addition to allowing the additions to be constructed on the Georgetown East and Eastport Elementary School, the other important component is that we would work with the city of Annapolis to have a section of sidewalk put in and facilitate the training and hiring of a crossing guard so that the children from the Reserve of Quiet Waters who actually reside within the walking area could continue to walk, but now in lieu of walking to Tyler Heights, they would have the ability to walk to the Georgetown East facility.
Thank you. Madam President, one of my biggest concerns is this is going to take place 2 years from now rather than this year. And I know the community has a concern about that as well. And also, we received a few other options the board has at this point, so I'd like those to be considered at some point in time.
So I think what we'll do is vote on the motion to take forward option 10 plus Admiral Cochrane after public comment. And then if you would like to make a motion to add another option or a time frame in, we can vote on that separately. So right now we have a motion as amended to take option 10, the Tyler Heights Eastport Georgetown East plan plus Admiral Cochrane forward. Is there any more board discussion on that? I have 4 people who, Mrs. Burge.
I just want to clarify, did we actually make the motion to accept the superintendent's recommendation to begin with? Because
No,
we
she
can't
amended it right
because we
away.
can't amend it until we've made the original motion.
Okay.
So I move the superintendent's recommendation.
Okay, so is there any board discussion on the superintendent's recommendation for option 10?
Now she can make her amendment. I already made it. But you need to remake it.
So make it again.
I move to amend the superintendent's recommendation by adding Admiral Cochrane Drive as another alternative for 2016-17.
Okay. Mrs. Birch.
I do have a question. are we discussing the Admiral Cochrane Drive proposal as it was outlined in?
Not right now. We're discussing the amendment right now.
The amendment would be
to
what's,
as it is
what's in
outlined.
this
Correct.
packet. Okay. That's my question.
As the committee presented it.
As the okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. I have 4 cards, 5 actually now, of people who signed up to speak regarding redistricting. So I'll go ahead and call those people up if you're here to speak about option 10 or Admiral Cochrane. If you're here to speak about another option, we'll have to wait for that. So I have Trish Irvin, I have Sheila Finlayson, I have Jessica Patchler, Janet Norman, and Eric DeVito. So if you are here to talk about option 10 or Admiral Cochrane, come on up.
Good morning. Good morning, Board President Korbelak, Superintendent Arlotto, and members of the board. My name is Trish Irvin, and I currently serve as the chair of the Annapolis Education Commission. And as a commission that is part of the city government, we take great care in the duty of serving as a liaison between the city, the Board of Ed, elected officials, as well as government agencies and non-government agencies, in order to ensure equitable facilities as well as resources for the children of the city of Annapolis. Over the past year, the AEC has held many discussions concerning the process of redistricting for the Annapolis feeder system. I'm here today to share with you that the Annapolis Education Commission unanimously opposes a plan that does not bring immediate relief to Tyler Heights in August of 2015. All parties agree that there are no good alternatives. Anytime there is discussion centered around the redistribution of children within the school system, it is a serious matter. One of our commissioners, Jess Packler, has emailed several recommendations to the board, as well as the superintendent, that the AEC would ask the board to consider for proposing its own recommendation for redistricting. I also have hard copies that I've handed to the assistant. We all understand that Tyler Heights has immediate needs that need immediate attention. Prolonging this process by passing a recommendation that will not take place until 2016 is a disservice to the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade students that are housed in 13 relocatables outside of Tyler Heights Elementary School. These children have the right to more adequate conditions for learning. The AEC again asks that you consider a new recommendation to make changes happen by August 2015. Now, over the past several weeks, I've talked to many entities that could be involved to make sure that something could happen quickly and is a success. Through these conversations, I'm confident that something could be done sooner rather than later with all of us working together. And I believe we are all on the same page and, again, would welcome the opportunity to collaborate with the school system in order to offer a more immediate plan to the overcrowding at Tyler Heights Elementary. Our commission has and will continue to make this one of our top priorities. Thank you.
Trish, I just have a quick question.
Yes.
Is the AEC recommending option 10 or 7, but only for 2015, or a completely different option that the committee never presented to us?
A completely different option.
Okay.
We want something that would take place starting in August of 2015. And we have...
But none of the plans that were presented to us would be an option?
Only
changing the date? You're not advocating for just changing the date on one of the options. You're advocating for a completely different option that the committee did not present to us.
The committee being the redistricting committee? Yes.
Okay. Mrs. Finlayson.
Good morning, Dr. Arlotto, President Korbelak, and members of the board. Happy New Year. For the record, I'm Alderwoman Sheila Finlayson. I represent Ward 4 in the City of Annapolis, and I serve as the City Council liaison to our Education Commission. For those of you who don't know me, I am a retired educator, having spent over 35 years in Anne Arundel County Public Schools as a high school English teacher, and I served 2 terms as the TAC president. I come before you speaking on behalf of the aldermen of the Annapolis City Council because we are very concerned about the plan for our children. We all have great concern about the overcrowding at Tyler Heights. 13 portables, 138% of allowable student population is unheard of anywhere else, probably in the state. I'm sure you're equally as concerned. Several aldermen attended many of the redistricting meetings and were quite impressed with the commitment of the representatives. I'm equally sure that Dr. Orlado's staff has given him their expert advice on the best strategy. On Monday night, the Annapolis Education Commission took a position to ask you to focus a plan that will relieve the overcrowding sooner rather than later. Our children and teachers should not have to wait a year and a half for relief. We understand that true redistricting will come in just a couple of years, and any decisions that you make today or in the future, immediate future, will be temporary, and that children may have to be moved more than once. I think most parents are also aware of that possibility. But what we're looking at is how this is impacting the instruction and the safety of our children. They should not have to wait a year and a half for relief. We know that if we all decide to make something happen, it will happen. So we're asking that you take it not less seriously, more seriously, to try to find a solution now. You've heard from the president of the Education Commission and the results of our meeting on Monday night. The commission decided not to put forward a specific plan, but to simply ask you to find a plan that will relieve the overcrowding in August of 2015. So we would like to leave it to you as to how to make that happen. But we do need to be able to rely on you to make it happen. Our children don't deserve to wait a year and a half for this relief. So we rely on your expertise and give our children what they deserve. Now, those comments, thank you, end my prepared remarks. But after listening to Alex, and forgive me anyway, the question that was posed was the proposal cost neutral? And I think he said that it was. But what I also heard was that the city will have to put in new sidewalks and hire crossing guards. So it sounds like it's really not cost neutral. It's just a passing of that cost on to the city. And I don't believe at this point in time there's been a discussion about how to make that happen. Because just like you, we have a budget. And just like you, it's pretty tight. So I would think that before a decision that would put that cost on the city is seriously considered, that there be some discussion with the city on how we make that happen. You know, there's no doubt that we will try to do what we can within the confines that we have, but a discussion needs to be had. So if that is a proposal that you want to support, then I would ask that you include a meeting with the council and the mayor to find out what the true cost implications will be for us and for you. Thank you.
My name is Jessica Packler, and I am a resident of Ward 8 in Annapolis, otherwise known as Eastport, and I am a member of the Annapolis Education Commission. I also have 2 students at Eastport Elementary and 2 more that will eventually go there. I'm here before you today because this is an issue that I've been involved with and interested in for a long time, long before the redistricting committee was put into place, long before I actually even joined the Education Commission, but it's certainly one of the reasons that I've joined the Education Commission. The Annapolis cluster has multiple schools that are overcrowded, but none more than Tyler Heights. And as everyone has said, we need to make sure that Tyler Heights overcrowding is relieved, and sooner rather than later. But we also need to make sure that the process, whether a short-term solution, it's been said that this is only a temporary process, or a long-term decision. It's also been said by other people that there is no future redistricting in the plan, so we need to figure that out, does not create further issues and further educational stumbling blocks for our students. This decision needs to be not only about relieving the overcrowding, but also doing it in a way that creates a better situation for all of the students. As the previous speaker said, in regards to yesterday's situation, first, do no harm. We need to make sure that the decisions that are made by your board regarding the redistricting and the overcrowding do no harm as much as possible. There are always going to be people that are concerned and that are upset when their students have to move schools. I come before you. You've received my proposals. I sent one in November. The one I sent yesterday is similar to that, but slightly revised. So I do ask you to make sure that you can look at the one that I sent yesterday. I will tell you that that proposal does not make everybody at my school very happy, because it does involve losing a large population of our students that have been there for multi-generations. And if there were a way that I could find to do a proposal that involves creating a neighborhood school and keeping all the students at Eastport, I would do that. But I ask you, as the board, to reconsider the redistricting option currently before you. While they may achieve the current goal of relieving the problem Tyler Heights, they do not do it soon enough, and they do so with the risk of creating further problems. One of the major issues in the Annapolis cluster, when we talk about achievement gap, when we talk about some of the sociological problems that we have within the students and the people within the city of Annapolis, is that we have a large amount of busing. It's an issue across the clusters. Many of our low-income communities are bused out of their geographical neighborhoods where there are schools that they could walk to easily, to schools across the other side of town. That happens at Eastport. It happens at Tyler Heights. It happens at Germantown. It happens at Rolling Knolls. And it creates numerous educational and sociological issues. In the email that I sent you yesterday, I spoke to some of this, and I'm not going to get into the full of it right now. But what I am asking you to do is to look at the two options that I sent you. One is a short-term option. It can take place in 2015. It can immediately relieve the problem at Tyler Heights, and it can put forth a movement in motion to create a better solution for the long-term possibilities of the cluster. The other solution is a long-term solution. It involves the building of a new school, and there are many ways that we can do that. But I just ask you to please, do something soon, but do it right. Make sure the decisions aren't going to take the presentations before you, that not mine, but the other ones, currently involve moving a group of 150 students that are 2 blocks from Tyler Heights to another school a mile away. And I know that I have to finish.
Okay.
So I just ask you to not create another busing situation and try to start relieving some of the busing situations in the cluster. It does no good for any of our students anywhere in the cluster. Thank you for your time.
Janet.
Hello, Dr. Arlotto and the board, thank you for your time. My name is Janet Norman. I'm a member of the Annapolis Education Commission, but I also served on the parent committee for the redistricting effort as a representative from Annapolis Middle School. I didn't have a dog in this fight. I don't personally know the children as the principals do, who don't want to lose them to another school. I'm vested in having the students be the most prepared as they can for the rigors of academic and organization that they're going to hit in 6th grade. As you know, many of the test scores start to drop off in middle school because it's a big jump from elementary to middle. I commend the huge amount of work that the parent committee did with the many skills of your staff, Scott Schuler and John Vandekert, to help us. But as Mr. Albert, Mr. Saknovich, and board members and city council members who were there to watch us says, it was a who's on first chaos at the end. The parent committee asked for another week to finish the process. We were told we could not have it. Our chair told us we had to produce something, whatever. As you know, I think it was 18 members of the parent committee voted unanimously against the Admiral Cochran drive inclusion decision. So if you're putting that forward, know that no one on the entire committee from all those schools supported it. I strongly support your examination of the Packler proposal. That, as a plan reviewer, makes the absolute most sense for the city, for our communities, for the rigors that the kids need to achieve when they get into Annapolis Middle. All these 3 schools feed into Annapolis Middle: Georgetown East, Tyler Heights, and Eastport Elementary. We need those kids prepared when they come to middle school. You can't push this upon the city to solve. It's ridiculous to propose 150 kids crossing Bay Ridge Avenue during rush hour where there is no traffic light. Crossing guards are allotted for a narrow time frame, which sometimes doesn't coincide with when buses and things release. Ask your principals about this. They encounter this all the time when the crossing guard time slot doesn't mesh when kids need to cross. Do you have crossing guards for the after-school programs that many of the Hispanic parents participate in at the schools? No, you don't. Stop this train before it wrecks. You really need to get this right. We are the achievement gap here in Annapolis. And I strongly support your consideration of the Packler proposal, and that you go by the wishes of the Annapolis community to unify in our schools and not be divided as you have us now structured. Thank you.
Kevin?
Thank you. I actually have a question for you.
Yes.
You made a general statement that no one supported the Admiral Cochrane Drive, but
Okay.
you didn't tell me exactly why. Can you just real quickly, because it's, I mean, very succinctly, can you real quickly tell me why no one supported it?
It did not seem to be smart and logical in our sense that
Okay.
community need to be moved.
Thank
So
you.
I don't understand what your amendment is.
I'm not
Mr.
making an
Jackson.
amendment. I wanted to understand the reason why no one supported it, which is what you said a few
Right.
seconds ago. And it's okay if it just didn't seem reasonable. I'm okay with that. I just wanted to understand if there was some specific reason why no one in the community supported the Admiral Cochrane piece. And it's not.
I think it was also that there was, it added students to an already overcrowded school. Mills Parole is already at capacity, and doing that, adding them to that school would put them in an overcapacity.
Yeah, I know that there were many reasons. I'd have to go back and revisit
That's fine.
the
Thank
notes.
you.
I don't have them on me right now.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tom Boynton. I represent Tyler Heights on the redistricting committee, and I was here last month, and we met. I just, in defense of the plans, I was the guy, and my partner Shrika Crawford came up with Proposal 7, and I tried to make it as simple as possible, absolutely as simple as possible. Let's move this block of kids who are actually a half mile, not a mile from Georgetown East, over to Georgetown East, the 150 kids in neighborhood A, and then take the kids from a Herbert House and bring them back down to, or bring them to Eastport Elementary. That was the basis. And that was as simple as I thought I could make it, and it was pretty clear cut. The kids in neighborhood A, they're really, really close to Georgetown East. But more to the point is, like I said last time, we love our school. We love Tyler Heights. It's a family. We would prefer to keep all our kids, but we'd like to have them all under the same roof. That would be nice instead of 13 trailers. It really comes down to, are we going to allow these kids, who have to walk sometimes in one morning 2 or 3 times from their trailer into the school, for a special class, if they have to go to the bathroom, if they're going to lunch, and if it's raining, like this 3rd grade kid told me a couple weeks ago, she walks into the school 3 times when it's raining. By the time she gets back after lunch, she's cold and wet. It's just really hard to concentrate on school when you're cold and wet. Or another kid, right before the break, little girl, the 3rd grade classes, over 100 yards from the nearest door. And, she couldn't make it all the way to the bathroom. She wet herself. Also at Taylor Heights, have a lot of kids who are, don't get 3 hot meals a day. Sometimes their only hot meal of the day is at Tyler Heights because they're, in the free and discounted lunch program. And we have so many kids that by the time the last kid in the lunch line sits down with their hot lunch, which might be the only one of the day, there's kids lining up for the next lunch section. You know, it's not good. We're losing instruction time at Tyler Heights. Kids are wet. They're cold. We're not doing them a service. We got to do something in 2015. We all do, not just the board. I mean, we all have to think about doing something better for Tyler Heights. I'm not so beholden to my own plan. If the AEC has something better, fine. It would just be great to do something next year, and I really hope we do. Thank you so much.
Mr. Webb.
I have a question.
Thank you.
There are currently children bused into Tyler Heights, as I understand. As I understand that that's a population of about 110 students.
Right. It's the Harbor House kids from up Forest Drive, and then a few kids around the Tyler Avenue.
Was there any consideration given to just busing those children who are already being bused to Georgetown East?
That was Proposal 7.
That was Proposal 7. Okay.
It was an extra half mile.
Huh? House in Eastport Terrace to Georgetown East instead of moving over.
No, I'm saying in conjunction. It's 7. Proposal 7 was taking the kids from Harbor House, and just short of Harbor House there on Tyler Avenue, and then the kids who are out kind of where Mills Parole would naturally be, but they're overcrowded. Those kids who now come to Tyler Heights in a bus, we would just take the bus the extra half mile to Georgetown East.
Okay, and there still would be a need for moving reserve Quiet Waters children?
The only reason I thought about that personally was because, you know, they are very close. I mean, Tyler Heights and Georgetown East, they're within a mile of each other, and the apartments kind of are in the middle. So it is a walk. I mean, I understand Janice's concern about walking kids across Bay Ridge Avenue, but they walk across Forest Hills Avenue now, which is a pretty major thoroughfare too in the morning. So,
for immediate relief, do you think just rerouting those buses would provide enough immediate relief?
You know, depending, you know, we have the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade outside right now, so you can't say that taking 50 kids per se, you know, how much that's going to move how many 3rd and 4th and 5th graders, or then you have to move the school around. But of course, it would help.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Mr. Jackson.
Yeah, I really appreciate all of you all coming and testifying. I think the real issue on the table for us right now is to make sure that we get through the vote as it relates to the Cochran Drive piece of things.
I don't even understand what that is.
No,
honestly.
none of us understand that.
And then once we get through that, then we can come back to the Tyler Heights piece, because I think that is something that needs to be addressed. I have like three motions that I would have put on the table relative to that, but I don't want to do that yet until we get to this Admiral Cochran Drive vote.
Right.
And the superintendent's vote second, and then move to the Tyler Heights piece and other things that we may have motions on.
Correct. I still have Eric DeVito to come forward for this public testimony.
Thank you. My name is Eric DeVito. I'm here on behalf of Coke Homes and the Knights of Columbus property, speaking with regard to the Admiral Cochran Drive amendment that's on the table for you right now. And I appreciate President Korbelak and Dr. Arlotto to have the opportunity to speak again. Thank you, Vice President Nally, for your motion, and for your second, Mr. Jackson. That's exactly what we were here at your last board meeting, if you recall. There was a gentleman from the Knights of Columbus. There was a gentleman from the Arundel Lodge. I was here. We were asking you basically to include the Admiral Cochran Drive charge that was given to the committee, to take it to public hearing so we could have more discussion about it. We certainly respect the committee's decision on that one. We also believe there was some information that may have been misunderstood by the committee. There was also some factors about this that we believe it makes sense. You know, as we said before, part of the Knights of Columbus property right now is in the Mills Parole Schools District. It's split by Admiral Cochran Drive. A piece of property directly across Admiral Cochran Drive from it is in Mills Parole in the Annapolis feeder system. And the reality of the situation is I understand the overcrowding comments that were made about Mills Parole, but the South River feeder system also has overcrowding issues. And as we explained in a letter that we presented to the board, this community does not generate a tremendous amount of school students. Historically, it doesn't. Admiral's View is a fine example. It's a very similar community as what was being proposed at the Knights of Columbus piece, and we believe there's one school system or one school student from that community right now. Also, this is a proposed development. It's not an existing community. There are no students from this development right now in your school system. We're talking about 4 or 5 years out, if at all. So whatever overcrowding situation you're looking at right now is completely different 3, 4, 5 years from now. So what we were asking for and the issues that we brought up before, for example, the bus stop relocation for Arundel Lodge, the committee made it sound as though that was not a reality and that the Annapolis City didn't support that. Well, that in fact is not true. We provided to you an email from the Annapolis City that very much supports relocating the bus stop, which this redistricting and the proposed Koch development would allow. So we very much support the motion that's on the table, the amendment that would be on the table to at least put this back out for public hearing again, the exact same charge that was given to the committee, have some more of these discussions, provide some more information in support of this redistricting proposal to take the Knights of Columbus property into Mills Parole and into the Annapolis feeder system. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I believe, is there anybody else in the audience that didn't fill out a card that would like to talk about the redistricting? So the motion that we have on the table right now is the superintendent's recommendation. Right. We already voted. We've made his motion and amended. Right. Yeah, we did. The way we did it so far is that we have the superintendent's recommendation to bring option 10 happening in 2016-17 as amended by Mrs. Nally to also include Admiral Cochran Drive for 2016-17. So we've had a motion, we've seconded it, we've had our discussion, we've had public comments, so we're ready to vote on that.
That's right. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so all those in favor of the motion as amended? To bring it to public hearing. That motion passes 7-0-0. Now, if anyone would like to bring additional motions to the table, you can do that. Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, ma'am. If you don't mind pulling up the one slide, I know the community hasn't had an opportunity to see this slide. The board members have, and it is a extreme concern of mine not taking action to alleviate whatever it is that we can alleviate without creating additional problems for other schools relative to Georgetown East. And so I've spent some time both with Mr. Webb and last night after I left the Naval Academy driving Thom Drive and driving, what is that, Birch? Is that right?
That's my neighborhood.
Bryson Street, as well as Gaff Court and Martha Court, and Thom Court and Ashton Court, which are all in the reserve at Quiet Waters Apartments. And this is not ideal. I will tell you that I don't necessarily think that it's ideal. But if you take the apartments that's to the left of Thom Drive and you add up those numbers, that's currently 44 students on Thom and Ashton, the apartments that are on Thom and Ashton. And then if you go to the south on the map anyway of Graff Court, and if you also look at everything off of Martha Court, Graff and Martha Court, south of Graff and all of Martha Court, that's 55 students. If you add that up, 55 and 44, that's 99 students. Right now, I think Mr. Shaknovich said that there were 90 or so seats available at Georgetown East without causing a lot of problems at Georgetown East. And yes, it splits this particular community up. I get it, but also the reserve at Quiet Waters Apartments in 2 years is going to be split up anyway.
Yeah, they
because
extend down below.
Exactly, it extends down Bryson Street as well.
For the redistricting.
Right. So it's going to be, the community is going to be split anyway. And so what we would be doing if we were to approve Dr. Arlado's position to go into effect in 2 school years or a year and a half from now, you would be moving, with this proposal, you would be moving all of Martha Court, south of Graff Court on this map, Ashton and Thom Court, which totals 99 students, to move them next year, which is basically 99 students, 100 students from Tyler Heights Elementary School to Germantown East. Not ideal, I get it, but it's better. I'm sorry, Germantown East, excuse me. Georgetown East, excuse me. But it's better than nothing relative to moving some of our children over to actually moving them into a building. And so that is my recommendation that I would like to take to hearing. Again, today is only taking it to hearing for public comment, to give the public an opportunity to comment on that amendment to it. So everything to the right of Thom Drive, which includes apartment buildings 1293, 1295, 1297, and 1299, which is Ashton Court, and taking all of the apartment buildings off of Thom Court, which is building 1293, 1295, 1297, and 1299. That's a total of 44 students on Thom and Ashton. And then going across the street to Graff Court, which is apartment 1288 and 1290, and then going over to Martha Court, which is 1033 apartment, 1031, 1029, 1027, and 1025. That is a total of 55 students. That becomes a total of 99 students, and moving all of those children to Georgetown East. And that motion would need a second, or it will die.
Okay, so if I got this right, your motion is to amend or to take to public hearing an amendment for committee option 10 that would include apartment buildings 1293, 1295, 1297, 1299, 1288, 1290, 1033, 1031, 1029, 1027, and 1025 to Georgetown East in 2015.
To take effect in 2015.
Did I get all the apartments right?
I think you did.
Okay.
If you look at the map, it's everything Martha Court, Graff Court South, 1288, 1290, and look at Thom Court. It's everything to the right of Thom Court.
Can I ask you a question before
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, am I right with would it basically go underneath this block on like follow along Graff Court and then go up Tom Drive?
Everything here.
So the white line,
Okay.
the white line would go continue on along Graff Court and then go up Tom Drive.
That's exactly
right. Okay. Oh, okay. So you're taking that block.
And that's actually closer to Georgetown East than to the right. I mean, physically closer.
But I just wanted, I can think about it better.
So those that are north of Graff Court on this map would stay at Tyler Heights for another year.
Correct. Everything here up would continue to go down Bryson Street to Tyler Heights
Until 2016.
Then
Then
Dr.
we follow Dr. Olato's plan.
Correct.
So it's a two-phased approach to option 10.
And that's just to alleviate what we can alleviate. I think Mr. Shaknovich said at the last meeting that would bring Georgetown East capacity up to, I think it was 98% capacity. No, for Georgetown East up, but it would bring Tyler Heights capacity at least down. And the reason this is of strict concern to me is in the policy committee. The policy committee staff, the staff of the superintendent just brought forward, we only have two ways for children to get into schools. They have to be linked to parents that either have a deed or a lease. We know that in the Annapolis community, we have families that are sometimes 4 and 5 families living under one roof, and in some cases in these apartments and other places. Those families don't have leases. And so the staff has made a recommendation to start allowing those children a third option, to allow those children into schools, which we want all students in class, to allow them to get into schools with a PPW going to their homes and doing home visits and continuously doing that over time to establish residency. If that happens, what you're going to see at Tyler Heights and other places are an increased number of children in schools. And where do you think that's going to happen? Right there at Tyler Heights. So what is 137% capacity going to look like next year?
Oh, yeah.
Or the year after? Or the year after that? You're going to see Tyler Heights at 150, 155, 160% capacity. You're going to see 13 portables turn into 20 portables if we don't do something.
Mrs. Birch. Oh, okay, Mrs. Ritchie.
And I apologize because I wasn't at the last meeting and for personal reasons, and I watched it on television but wasn't necessarily able to comprehend everything that went on. So why is it, and maybe I need to ask Dr. Arlotto, why is it that we can't take the proposal now? I mean, why is it this option has to wait until 2016? I don't understand the rationale. I was trying to look through here and I can't really find the reason why the proposal that the one that we've just voted on, option 10, can't be implemented in 2015.
Absolutely. I'd love to talk about that. Mr. Sheknovich, you want to come to the table and our group can head on back and we can try and answer some of your specific questions. The immediate piece is, Ms. Ritchie and the team can talk more about the conversations that have occurred up to this point, is that by moving option 10, and this basically what it is option 7 is option 10, but saying let's do it for 2015 versus 2016. And because Georgetown East and Eastport are both going under construction for additions, my recommendation, the purpose for my recommendation, or one of the reasons for my recommendation, was to not put those schools into an overcrowded situation while they're under construction. They'll both be completed, those additional wings will both be completed by 2016, and then we can move the children. And then we'll have a larger, and this is we realize this is in pieces, but then once we can get to, we go through the school construction process, and hopefully it moves forward under funding, that soon by 2017, 2018, we'll be able to get to Tyler Heights and Hillsmere, and then redistrict the entire cluster, including Bates. We'd be able to do the entire cluster. Right now we did a piece of the cluster, not the entire cluster.
Right, I understand that.
But that was the reason.
Okay, and that makes perfect sense because you don't want to, the less bodies you have in there with the construction and stuff, and the less you have to worry about moving kids and problems. How will this option that Mr. Jackson just proposed, how, moving those now, which is what this is asking, we're moving the piece of it to Georgetown. How will that impact?
Well, I don't have an let me start. I don't have an immediate response. The team may have had some discussions about it. I don't have a problem with this going to public at all, right? I mean, this is the purpose of this, right? No major decisions are being made now on this. It's what you all want to bring to public hearing, and that's the great debate that's going on now, and I think it's wonderful. I haven't looked at it. I was circling it as he was talking for the first time, and so I was looking at the numbers and talking with your colleague as well in trying to understand it, because I don't know what that will do to transportation, and I haven't looked at the numbers to see what the overcrowding is. I was quickly looking at it to see what it might do, so I don't have an immediate, that's my immediate response. I don't have a detailed response for you unless, Mr. Sheknovich, you've got something, but we really haven't had a chance to look at this proposal, and certainly it can go to public hearing in between now and then. That will give us time, staff time, to really look at it and have some deep conversations about this proposal and any others that might come forward.
And I know this may, and any of the ones that are coming forward, we're going to hear public hearings on March the 5th. Is that right? Anyway, I would like to request that we get the material in advance of that. Like not the day before, because this is for people who don't live in this area. I'm not real familiar with this, so I have to really look at these and pay attention to what's going on. So I need more than just a day to do that. So I would like to respectfully request that we have the information at least by the 28th of February, so that we have plenty of time to kind of look at the information as it relates to like what it's going to do to change here, and
what the whole impact is.
Yeah, what the impact and stuff is. So if that would be possible, I would appreciate that.
Ms. Chaudhry.
I move that we bring the recommendation of the Annapolis Education Committee for a public hearing.
The one that they. Okay. Well, first we have to vote on Mr. Jackson's proposal, and then we can do yours. Okay. Is there any more board discussion on Mr. Jackson's motion? Is there any public comment on Mr. Jackson's motion? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor of bringing option 10, the 2-year phased approach as presented by Mr. Jackson, to public hearing? Motion passes 7-0-0. Mr. Jackson. Okay. Now you can restate your motion.
I move that we bring the recommendation of the Annapolis Education Committee for a public hearing.
Mr. Jackson.
Okay, so if I understand this right, this is the proposal that Jessica Patchler sent to us, which was we're talking about yesterday's email and all of her information, correct? I just want to make sure that I'm looking at from the 6th of January at 2:32 p.m. is when we got it. That's the one we're talking about. Okay. I fully support bringing that option to the table. I don't know all the details of it. I wouldn't claim to know all the details today, but I hope that this will give us some time and we can get some materials and some feedback on this in plenty of time to be able to flesh it out. Thank you.
Ms. Chaudhry.
And the recommendation for immediate relief from this morning, the email. That's also part of it.
For 2015. So we're looking at bringing Jessica Packler's recommendation for 2015-16 to public hearing, because I understand the Annapolis Education Commission, as Mrs. Finlayson stated, did not have a specific recommendation. They were leaving it up to us. Is that correct?
That is correct. We did not take a vote on Ms. Packler's recommendation.
So the motion should be amended to stay. It's Ms. Packler's recommendation.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Is there any board discussion on bringing Ms. Packler's recommendation to public hearing?
Madam President, you may want to ask Mr. Bennett whether that has to be read into the record so that all of us, public and staff included, know exactly what the construct of this motion is, so it can be accurately identified and we know exactly then what to take to public hearing on your behalf.
Do we have a copy, Molly, of the recommendation? Tyson, should we have the whole plan put up?
Please keep in mind it's long.
I know.
It's fundamental to any kind of a motion that an organization adopts that everyone on the organization, on the board, for example, and the world know what it means. So if there are those who don't know what Ms. Packler's recommendation is, then somehow it's got to be published, if you will, so that people know what they're voting on and what the board has and hasn't adopted.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. But before you leave, Mr. Bennett, does that, though, that it's published, does that mean that we have to read it all, or can we publish it some other kind of way after we vote on it, i.e. the public information officer summarizes what the specifics are in the email? Because the email is 5 paragraphs, and they're not one sentence long.
I hear what you're saying, Mr. Jackson. The parliamentary part of it remains the same, which is that everybody has to know what they're voting on, and not to say that organizations don't vote on things which at times they don't know about or understand. I'm not saying that doesn't happen occasionally, never in this organization, but at other places. But to the extent possible, even if a board member or someone could state for the record what the elements are of that proposal, that would be something that would be part of the record. And better than nothing is what I'm saying.
Thank you, ma'am.
Can we have Ms. Packler come and present her recommendation to us? Yeah, I know. I'm just asking Tyson. Yeah. Okay.
Mr. Bennett. I heard you say that the voting body has to be aware of it. Is that what I heard you say?
Yes.
Okay, because we're the voting body.
Yes.
And we're aware of it. Because we all received, now whether we read it or not, that's the issue. But we all received a copy of this email with this recommendation in it. So my question then is, we're the voting body that has to be aware of it, and we are. So if we vote to take that to public hearing and then we publish this, we obviously are going to give it to the staff because we have questions, like I just asked before, of what the impact is and what the cost is and things like that. And we're not going to answer those questions now, whether they know this information or not. The thing we're trying to do now is take something to a public hearing. This doesn't say we vote for this or we're for this or we're against this or in any way. So I think I heard you say that the voting body has to be aware of it, and then we have to make it public, which we will.
And in my opinion, the best scenario under which you make public what you are voting on today is at least by summarizing it, having someone summarize it for the public watching you on cable TV and sitting here in your boardroom, so that people know what it is that you're acting on. Yes, ma'am.
Mrs. Birch.
I think it's also important to note that there were two options in the email, not just one, and the second one was a, quote, thinking outside of the box email that included using a new school that doesn't exist, potentially thinking about using Rolling Knolls existing building, which we're tearing down. So I think that we need to think kind of carefully as we just plan on bringing proposals that likely couldn't happen because they wouldn't work for the school system, because we are tearing down the existing Rolling Knolls building and don't have a new school for Annapolis in our plan, to get people's hopes up and have them testify on something that isn't going to happen. So can we just clarify if we're doing option one or both options, or because I'm not sure what we're doing here.
Ms. Chaudhry.
Well, I was thinking about doing option one. I wasn't thinking about option number two. Yeah.
Ms. Ritchie.
Okay, so is that the motion then just option one?
Could you go ahead and summarize option one, please, for everybody? So we can enter it into the record.
I can do it. I'm here. You want me to do it?
Okay.
So option one, I did hand out, in addition to the email that I sent yesterday, I did provide a printed package for all of the board members. I don't know if you received that, but I did pass that out this morning when I got here. And the option one takes into account that Woodside Garden and Juliana Circle children, which are neighborhood U, attend Eastport Elementary. Children at Newtown 20, which is neighborhood V, attend Georgetown East, even though that is in the same neighborhood as Woodside and Juliana Circle. Children in neighborhoods R, Q, and part of N attend our bus to Tyler Heights. Basically, the plan is that if you're looking at the if you look at the map that I sent with the plan, basically you would move Harbor House, Eastport Terrace, Bay Ridge Avenue, and Tyler Avenue North from Tyler Heights to Eastport. You would move Ambridge, Timber Creek, Cedar Ridge from Tyler Heights to Georgetown East. You would move Woodside Gardens and Juliana Circle from Eastport to Georgetown East. Those, in both cases, all of those students, Georgetown East, Woodside, and Juliana Circle, are bus, so it would just be a simple matter of changing a bus route. In the terms of the Harbor House and Eastport Terrace and Bay Ridge Avenue, those are currently bus children that would no longer have to take a bus. They'd be able to walk to their school. You would move Regent Street from Tyler Heights into Germantown. It's just 8 students, but everyone around them currently is bused to Germantown, so it would be putting them on the same bus that everyone around them is going, rather than having an additional bus that goes to Tyler Heights. And then you would move Severn House and Fairview, Highland, and Parkwood from Georgetown East into Eastport, which is actually a zero-sum matter because there's no students currently in that area that attend either school. And then in 2016, when Georgetown East addition is finished, you would move the pre-K from Tyler Heights. Right now, Tyler Heights is a pre-K annex, and which has 4 pre-K rooms in it. And you would move the 60 students in those rooms to the new pre-K building that is being built with 6 rooms at Georgetown East, allowing you to then put the kindergarten in the annex at Tyler Heights, and bring anybody else that's left in the trailers into the school for basically no or very few trailers. It could be that the trailers will only be used for resource rooms, and all students would be in the school.
So just a question, you mentioned moving students over to the pre-K rooms at Georgetown East, but those will not be ready until 2016.
Right, it clarifies that in the option. It says that part is in 2016. So it's basically, it would relieve 100, and it's about 100. It would basically take Tyler Heights in 2015 from 137% to 117%. Eastport would remain at 100%, and Georgetown East would go up to 100%. So that it substantially decreases the amount of overcapacity at Tyler Heights, in what I think is a better movement for the whole of Annapolis, looking at the long-term location of our students and the ability to walk to schools. It also eliminates a number of bus routes without the need to build any new sidewalks. And then it doesn't. And the other issue with moving neighborhood A in Superintendent Arlotto's proposal or Mr. Jackson's proposal is that Tyler Heights is incredibly proficient at this point in dealing with the bilingual needs of neighborhood A. And Georgetown East is not. They have one part-time, quarter-time, I think it is, bilingual facilitator. And this eliminates having to do any mass change with the way the school is set up, with the way the bilingual facilities are set up. It really allows resources to remain where they are for the best of all the students.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table to take the Packler redistricting option number 1 to public hearing, and it's been seconded.
You can have public comment first.
Is there any more board discussion? Now we can have public comment.
Okay, no comment. Go ahead, sorry. No, go ahead, Tom. You want to go first.
There's a couple of problems I have with the Packler recommendation. The first is the 106 kids that come from Juliana Circle, Woodside Gardens, that are going to go to Georgetown East. That takes 106 kids from the projects out of her school and puts them into Georgetown East. Those kids have been going to her school for years. The other thing is, if you look at Proposal 7, which doesn't impact her school until 2016, because none of the kids from Harbor House would have to move, and speaks to Board Member Webb's questions to me about the neighborhoods up by Parole and Harbor House and Tyler Avenue, who are being bused to Tyler Heights right now. We could bus them to Georgetown East. So Proposal 7, if you look in 2 years from now, Tyler Heights is at 97% capacity, Eastport's at 96, and I believe Georgetown East is at 96 as well. It doesn't move a whole bunch of neighborhoods. It moves a lot less neighborhoods. The kids that are being bused to Tyler Heights now will just be bused to Georgetown East. A lot simpler. And you're not upsetting so many neighborhoods. Thank you.
Mr. Jackson.
Thank you. I mean, there's enough to go around here. All we're voting on here today is to take it to public hearing. So I don't see why we don't take both options. Jessica's proposal, I'm sorry I can't pronounce your last name yet, Packler. Jessica's option 1, Ms. Packler's option 1 to public hearing, and we can take option 7 to public hearing, and then we can get into the finer details at the board level of exactly what's really best for our kids. If we don't do it today, unless we suspend the rules, we can't do it tomorrow, because this is the hearing where everything we want to take to public, this is the board meeting where everything we want to take to public hearing must be done. And so I'm in favor for both of them.
Would you like to amend?
No, we can go ahead and vote on hers, and then we can
we'll
come
do one
back
for
and I'll
option
make a
7.
motion, or somebody else can make a motion associated with option 7. So we can have a full, robust conversation about what's best for Tyler Heights children, because I don't know that we've got that answer today.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor that's been properly made and seconded to bring Jessica Packler's redistricting option number 1. Sorry.
You had asked if there was public comment, and Tom went, and I would still like to speak if I could.
Yes.
Okay. Janet Norman. I don't have a child at any of these schools like other people do. I'm concerned about who's best prepared to come into our middle school and our high schools. The Packler proposal makes a lot of sense, and I think should be given full consideration. As you all are struggling with the who's on first, what neighborhood, what bilingual facilitators, you can see the chaos that the parent committee had to wrestle with. A lot of good things came out, but it's very complicated and needs the light of full examination under public purview. If you move these 150 people from students from reserve at Quiet Waters, you are then taking the full-time bilingual facilitator at Tyler Heights and splitting them between 2 schools. So there will be days of the week where that bilingual facilitator will not be at Tyler Heights at all, or will not be at Georgetown East if a child is sick or injured or something happens that the school needs to communicate with the parents, as it happens at Annapolis Middle right now, when we have days when we can't communicate with our students' parents. There are many programs, supportive programs at Tyler Heights right now. So we want to continue that and have those students prepared for middle school and close that achievement gap, and not just go with the low-hanging fruit of, hey, there's 150 of them right here, shove them over there. Let's look at the real instruction that's going on, the real relationships with the school, and let's determine what's best for the students. Thank you.
Mr. Jackson.
Yeah, I just want to follow up, ma'am. I mean, this whole idea of bilingual facilitators and splitting them up in halftime is the administration here they do this all the time with personnel allocation. So I trust the administration will make the right call for our children to ensure they have all the resources, whether they're at Georgetown East or whether they're at Tyler Heights or whether they're somewhere else. We have to trust in that. We pay people here in this system a lot of money to do and be passionate about what they do. So it just kind of it disturbs me a little bit that we don't think that relationships can be built no matter whether they're in either one of those schools. And bilingual facilitators and allocation of staff, that's something that on an operational level, I trust. I have to trust the superintendent to make the right decision about snow. I will trust him to make the right decision about ensuring allocation is there.
We don't always have the resources we need. That's not been our experience at Annapolis Middle.
Trish.
Okay, I just want to clarify. So today you would be voting based, Dr. Arlotto's proposal would be placed with public hearing. Option 7, the Packler proposal. Oh, you have it. Okay, but I'm saying, and then as well as Mr. Jackson's, or is yours attached to Dr. Arlotto's? That's where. Okay. All right. I just wanted to clarify. So there'd be potentially four proposals that would be discussed at public hearing in March.
We'd have option 10 as presented by the redistricting committee, which is Dr. Arlotto's recommendation, option 10.
That's option 10, okay.
We would have option 10 as amended with a phased-in approach from Mr. Jackson.
Got it.
We have the Admiral Cochran redistricting that would be brought to public hearing. Perhaps the Packler option 1 and option 7. Perhaps.
Okay,
we still have to vote on both of those.
So 5. Okay.
So far.
Okay, so far. All right. Just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Mr. Webb.
I just want to make sure that's what the understanding that the Annapolis Education Commission wants immediate relief. So we're talking 2015. From Peckler or any option that we adopt. Well, can I throw an amendment on all of them for 2015? What do you mean no?
Because it hasn't happened. You can most certainly do it, but it hasn't.
But
Mr. Jackson already amended option 10 to have a piece of it that starts in 2015.
Right.
But if you want the whole thing for option 10 to be in 2015, that would be a separate motion.
Okay.
Because Mr. Jackson's was only that piece, 99 students, right? So we'll do the one on the table first, and then we'll move on. Is there any other public comment on Packler option 1? Okay, we have a motion on the floor that's been properly made and seconded. All those in favor of bringing Packler option 1 to public hearing? Motion passes 7-0-0. Now, Mr. Jackson.
Yes, ma'am. I'd like to make a motion that we also take option 7 to public hearing.
Is there any board discussion? Is there any public comment on option 7? We have a motion on the floor that's been properly made and seconded. All those in favor? Motion passes 7-0-0. Mr. Webb.
Can I make an option, a motion that any and all options be considered for immediate relief 2015?
And Mrs. Birch?
My only concern about the superintendent's option is that there wouldn't be room in the schools in 20. Isn't that right? We need to wait the extra year for there to be room in the receiving schools. Wasn't that my understanding as to why we were waiting until 2016?
Yes, ma'am. If I can just elaborate momentarily, the additions that are proposed for both Georgetown East and for Eastport Elementary School are included in part of your FY16 capital improvement program that you've put forward. Neither the state nor the county government have acted in terms of finalizing their budgets, issuing the authorities and the appropriation required. Those budgets don't become effective until July 1 of 2015. No matter what, if I got the money on July 1, 2015, I couldn't design those, permit those, construct those, and have those ready in 6 weeks. Even if I got $1.2 million on July 1, 6 weeks from then, I wouldn't have a 6-room addition constructed onto Georgetown East or onto a 4-room addition onto Eastport, if that's helpful at all.
So in my mind, then, that is one option that wouldn't be possible to be done in 2015. So I'm going to have to vote against your motion. I mean, for the ones that are possible for 2015, I'm okay with that. But that one, I can't vote for your motion because it doesn't work for all of the options. Thank you.
Mr. Webb.
So I want to clarify what is available for 2015. Just want to make sure. Yours?
Admiral Cochran would be available for 2015.
Mm-hmm.
Would option 7 be available for 2015? Yes?
Partially, yes. The answer is yes.
Option 7 is a two-phase, just as Mr. Jackson's. It's a two-phase piece. We
Right.
do one in 2015, we do some addition in 2016. Yes.
So that's already a part of the
It's
plan.
already part of it.
So option 10 can't be done in 2015.
That's the option 10 standalone is the only one that does not have an element that is possible in 2015.
Okay.
All the other ones have portions of them that can in fact be implemented in 2015, August 2015 specifically.
So option 7 already allows for 2015 phased in.
I'll rescind my motion.
Are you wanting Admiral Cochran to be 2015, or you want to leave that as 2016?
Yeah, there's nobody there. We don't.
So we can leave it.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're rescinding your motion. Mr.
So
Jackson.
can I ask a question just to make sure on the Admiral Cochran? Did we say 16? Did we vote for 16? Yes. So. That was part of my motion. Yeah. Okay. 16, 17. Okay. And then I just have one more question with respect to Mr. Shagnovich. Part of the Peckler recommendation is that 150 students, option 1, 150 students would move. I think I heard the community also say, Ms. Peckler also say that that would make capacity at Georgetown East at 100%. I want to make sure that, because I thought, based off of the last board meeting we had in December, that the numbers at 150 students was going to take the capacity for Georgetown East over 100% capacity, and that was the reason that my motion in the number of apartment buildings in option A was 99 students, which was basically 3 to 4 classrooms, which right now Georgetown East has 3 classrooms available or space for 3 classrooms. So can you clarify between the 99 students that would be moving under the amendment that I made to Dr. Lotto's proposal for next year and the 150, that's option 1, that Ms. Peckler suggested?
Yes, sir. Well, let me caveat that by saying I've not had the opportunity to see or review or analyze Ms. Peckler's proposal, so I'm not. However, given that as a caveat, your scenario is correct. So Georgetown East could, in fact, accept the 90 to 100 students, inclusive of your proposal.
Without going over 100%.
Without going over 100% utilization. However, if we moved 140 or 150 students, whichever the number is between Ms. Peckler's proposal or not, any of those numbers, 140, 150, would certainly, all of those would put Georgetown East over capacity, if in fact those are the numbers that you're using in your scenario.
Okay. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate it.
Ms. Ritchie.
Okay, mine isn't 150, just so you know. Mine's only 110.
Ms. Ritchie.
I would like to respectfully request that at the conclusion of all of this and what we're going to take to public hearing, that the staff be presented the information, given all the information, and then present back to us in a chart form the pros and cons of each move as it impacts the cost, what we may have to add in terms of sidewalks, if we'd had to add sidewalks, busing, transportation, any of those, all of the cost factors. And I would, I'm a simple person, so I'd like it in simple terms. I just like it in a chart where I can look at it. These maps are really good, but I get lost coming out of a closet, so it's real hard for me to understand these maps. So if you can just tell me, this is why, this is what this would mean, this is what that would mean. If we move these students, this is what it's going to cost us in buses. If we move these students, this is what it's going to cost us. And not because cost is the only factor, but it is a factor that has to be placed into this. And so what that means. I hear a lot of things about miles. It's only a half a mile. It's only, there's also that as the crow flies. It may only be a half a mile if I could go straight through the woods. But if I have to go out and come around and go down, and I know that in our transportation thing, we really try to avoid having kids cross busy lanes. We try to avoid letting them off, and we do that same side, and there's all kinds of, we try to avoid going across major things with kids and so forth. So if there's a piece in there that says this while it's nice and it's only this would cause us to do such and such, do you understand what I'm saying? And so all the pieces that would go into any kind of the way we normally do business, to look at both of these pieces, so that on all of them, whatever we look at, so that we have the full facts in front of us, and not this, because I don't live in this area, so I don't know that I can go through the woods and get here, or I can go out on the highway and come around and it's 2 miles. You understand? Okay, thank you very much.
I just wanted to say that looking at, there's a summary chart just for everyone's knowledge of option 1. It looks like in 2015, Georgetown East would be receiving 113 students, and then the delayed pre-K in 2016, they'd be receiving 60 more, was the Packler plan, option 1. So that was the way the plan was presented.
And we'll be glad, Ms. Ritchie and Ms. Burge, to go through this. We've not seen these, And so both between Ms. Peckler's recommendations in number one, we've not had a chance to analyze it, which we'll gladly do and put it to you in whatever form works best for you. Simple form if that works best for you. And same is true for Mr. Jackson's suggestion. It's not something we've had a chance to analyze and digest with regard to transportation numbers. We just haven't had a chance to do that. But we'll, as is the case in any redistricting, when proposals come forward to the board and there are options to those proposals, staff will then take the time between this time and when it goes to public hearing to have conversations with you and bring you the information you desire. We'll be glad to do that.
Mrs. Nally?
And to tag on to Mrs. Ritchie, I'd like, based on Ms. Norman's concern regarding the staffing, I would like, I know you can't do in-depth, but if Tyler Heights is going to lose any staffing or another school, just to get an idea, if we can, to make sure, we're in a budget right now, and if we need, if we're going to need additional staffing, possibly we may need to look at that and understand that piece of it, because that's really important to have enough bilingual facilitators and also other staffing. Thank you.
I just have a question for myself. If we are taking a plan such as Packler Option 1 to public hearing, and there is a neighborhood we'd like to carve out and not move, are we able to do that, or do we have to come back and propose a new plan and do this today all over again? Since we haven't really had the option to look at, right.
If something new arises, then you need to be back here again to talk about it publicly. If it's a matter of which options you choose after there are public hearings and other considerations from among the things that have gone to public hearing.
What if something comes up after we receive the data from Dr. Arlotto's staff that Mrs. Ritchie just requested, and we want to bring another option to public hearing before March? Could we come back the end of January, early February, and add another option to the table if we need to?
The direct answer is yes, you can.
Okay.
Not only yes, you can, but probably it's the best thing to do.
Okay.
It's the whole idea behind openness. The more you can.
As long as we bring it by March, before March 9th.
That's right.
Okay. Mrs. Felison.
Yes, I would like to request, piggybacking on Ms. Ritchie's request, that any cost that is needed from the city, i.e. sidewalks, crossing guards, would you please include that so that we can have that discussion also? And my second request is that the information that's going to be generated, can that be shared with the community? We want people to come and speak at the public hearings and have full knowledge of everything that's on the table so that, we can all speak intelligently.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Are we finished with all of our options for the table? Okay, so just to summarize for everybody, we have option 10, the superintendent's recommendation as is for 2016-17. We have Admiral Cochran added for 2016-17. We have option 7 as presented from the committee, which is a phased in 2015-16 and 16-17. We have the Packler option 1, and we have Mr. Jackson's amended option 10, which would make that a phased in approach for 15-16, 16-17. So five so far. Thank you. We did. Yes, we voted for those 5. Thank you, everybody. We now have 7 policies that are coming up with a third reading to vote on today. They're all action items, and the first is item 4.04, the policy called Family Life and Human Sexuality Advisory Committee, policy KBB 501.02, and that is a third reading. Dr. Arlotto, your recommendation, please.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend approval policy KBB, subject to final correction for style and format.
Second. Is there any discussion? Is there any public comment? Motion on the floor properly made and seconded. All those in favor? Motion passes 7-0-0. The next item is 4.05, Advisory Committees to the Board, Policy KB 501, third reading. Dr. Arlato, your recommendation?
Yes, ma'am. I recommend approval of policy KB, subject to final correction for style and format.
Any discussion? Is there any public comment? The motion on the floor properly made and seconded. All those in favor? Motion passes 7-0-0. Item 4.06, Citizen Advisory Committee Policy KBA 501.01, third reading. Dr. Arlato, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend approval of policy KBA, subject to final correction for style and format.
Any discussion? Is there any public comment? Motion on the floor that's properly made and seconded. All those in favor? Motion passes 7-0-0. Item 4.07, Ethics and Conflict of Interest Policy BAF, third reading. Dr. Arlato, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend approval of policy BAF, subject to final correction for style and format. Prior to taking a vote, I think Ms. Kutchis has a few brief words on this policy.
You will see two changes that changed from second read to third read that I want to bring to your attention because they were at the recommendation of the ethics panel. So specifically on page 10 of 22, you will see the ethics panel asked that we start to do electronic filing of the financial disclosure statements. So we did add one word in there just to clarify that they would be electronically filed. And then on page 11 of 22, the very next page, the recommendation from the ethics panel was that prior to an employee retiring, resigning, or being terminated, that they would complete the financial disclosure form at that time. So that language has been added to accommodate their recommendations.
Thank you, ma'am. Just in the way of intent, I just want to make sure that we publicly have this on the record. The idea of the change from the ethics panel on page 10, where we say a member of the board or employee shall file the electronic financial disclosure statement required under this subsection, i.e. the idea is we file it electronically. If I'm standing in front of Molly and she is notarizing it, I don't need to take it home and then electronically scan it only to send it back to her, correct?
I would imagine that once Ms. Connolly gets, this language, that there will be a system that will be worked out administratively on how to facilitate that specific issue. I don't think we would necessarily put that in the policy.
I'm not worried about it. I just want to note it that it's not the expectation I got to go home and electronically scan it just to send it back to Molly to actually officially submit it. That's not the intent. So we're good there.
Okay.
And then the second item is on the next page where we say administratively possible. This is the retiring, resigning, and we would like for them to complete a financial disclosure form if administratively possible. Are we envisioning some cases where it is not possible for somebody that is retiring, resigning, or terminating, or dying, for example?
Exactly. So the example that I spoke with Mrs. Bozella, Executive Director of Human Resources, about in this situation she has had, unfortunately, employees in a dire health situation where they're in a hospital and they're having, a spouse or somebody else fill out paperwork for them, and at that time, it may not be possible, advisable, whatever the case may be, or really just administratively possible to get the paperwork that we need.
Okay, but those would be those kind of circumstances.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Mrs. Ritchie.
As to the electronic, it's not a filing one. I mean, they don't want us to fill it out online. They just want us to do the paper one and then have it scanned in. Is that? Am I understanding
their
that correct?
specific recommendation in the memorandum to Mrs. Korbelak says that they formally recommend to the Board of Education their process be established for electronic filings of the annual financial disclosure forms.
So we'd still fill it out in person, and then they would scan it into they can scan it into a. No.
We just tried to reflect what they had.
Well, what I'm trying to figure out, because then that impacts whether I make a motion or something of that, or ask to have certain change, because we've already filled out all our forms for this year. So if they want us to be filed electronically, in terms of us filling it out electronically, then I would respectfully request that that take place in the next cycle. But if it's a matter of us filling the form out and then electronically scanning it into a document someplace on the web, then that can happen at any time. I mean, that can happen once we put these processes in place and then thereafter. So that's
Right.
my question to that. And I see Mr. Bennett coming forward. So.
Ms. Ritchie, having been at the ethics panel's meeting when they discussed this, their purpose was to implement this
Okay.
as we go forward.
Okay.
Not anything that's already been filed, but the
Okay.
next time filing occurs, that it be done in an electronic
Okay,
manner.
that's good. And while you're there, because you were there, you can answer this question. The last one about them having the people who are retiring or leaving and filling out why?
For a documentation of those individuals. For example, people may leave service with the school system in a certain month, and the next month the forms were due, and in order to try to maintain a full complement of files on all the employees who were expected to file documents for that preceding year, the ethics panel thought that it was important, as people were leaving through the year, to gather their information that they would otherwise have been giving at the end of the year if they were still
So if I'm
employed.
reading that policy correct, and I'm going to make up the dates because I can't remember offhand. If all our ethics forms are due in by February 1, and everybody's filed them in, and somebody leaves in March or April, they have to fill out a form again, because that's what the policy says.
You're talking about the preceding March?
No. So if February 1st of 2015, I fill out the forms and hand them in, and then in March 30th, I decide to retire, I would now have to fill those forms out again.
For the following year, yes, that's right.
Well, that's kind of dumb.
No.
I just filled it out. I mean, I had yeah, it is kind of dumb. I mean, because I just filled it out. I mean, what happened? I don't know.
It's for a different calendar year.
Dumbness is relative.
Yeah, well, that's true. And the fact is, I just actually think that I think it's a I don't agree with it. I'm going to vote for the policy because it's the policy, but I don't agree that you should have to fill out a form if you're retiring or leaving the system. I mean, if you've decided I can't fill out a form for when I'm next year because I'm not even here. So anyway.
Doesn't the law require that if you're an employee or one of the people on the list for any portion of the calendar year, you have to have an ethics form on file for that year?
Well, that
was
part of the concern that the ethics panel had, that once the employee is gone,
you can't get them.
Often you can't go recapture that person again and say, fill out this form, because at that point, if they want to say, no, I'm not filling it out, what's your option? I don't think you have any.
Well, really, if I retire or quit, that's why it says before they well, you don't have an option then. If I leave, then once I fill it out. I mean, I have issues, but that's okay. I have a lot of issues.
Mr. Webb.
My understanding is that the ethics committee wants us to have an electronic form, not to just fill out a form and scan it in, but have an electronic form for this, right?
And I think that's what Mr. Bennett was just referencing,
Yeah.
that if the forms had already been filled out, and just like with any policy, obviously this wouldn't go in effect on forms that have already been filled out, but then going forward for the next year.
Going forward, we'll have an electronic form
That's
that we can fill out.
Right. And my understanding that Ms. Connolly's office is working with technology in order to effectuate that request.
Thank you.
Mr. Jackson.
Thank you. And if that's the case, then we've got to figure out some kind of way associated with notarizing an electronic form. So that needs to be taken into consideration. If it's really software development, which is what you're really saying, we go online and we fill it out and we ask staff to fill it out electronically. You've got to have some way of notarizing that form if a notary is still required, which I think it's got to be notarized according to our policy and regulation. So I would just ask you all to think about that. Relative, because I didn't take it that way. I took electronic filing as I was going to take a piece of paper and I was gonna write it down like I've always done, and then I had to electronically submit it because I still have to get it notarized. So I just want to make sure that we get that down once we approve this, so we know what we're going to do.
Mr. Jackson, I have a hunch that somewhere out there, given the state of technology at the moment, there's someone who does electronic notaries.
Did you?
I'll look and find out.
You'll look.
Just a point of clarification. It's a 2 or 3 step process. The first step is for the electronic filing direction to go into the policy. That's step number 1. Step number 2 is for the ethics panel, assistant attorney, whatever, to go to the superintendent and ask the superintendent if he would have his, Mr. Barlow, work with me to figure out how. Okay. So the policy just says what. It does not say how. That's the next step. And then the third step is putting it into the process.
Okay.
So I'm not sure it's actually going to happen this year, because it might take a couple of months to.
And my last question really is, we talked about this at the last time this came before us, has to do with the State Ethics Commission. This is different language associated, and I asked you all to reach out to the State Ethics Board and have a conversation about Anne Arundel is making changes to what was prescripted policy and regulation. So have we done that?
No, and the reason for it is that it was our view, it's my view, that having dealt with the Ethics Commission, the State Ethics Commission on this issue previously, that the Ethics Commission was setting forth minimum requirements, and that this board has now met those minimum requirements. But if those changes are being made that don't have a substantive difference, that don't make a substantive difference, in other words, paper or electronic filing, that we will provide those changes, proposed changes, to the State Ethics Commission for their comment. But in this instance, I don't anticipate that they are going to have any comment other than that's fine with us.
Okay, I hope you're right. I would say that electronic or hard copy is not substantive, like you said. Requiring somebody to do it before they resign, retire, terminate, whatever, maybe, in my opinion, a little bit more substantive than not. But hey, we'll see what they have to say.
We'll find out what they have to say.
Thank you.
Mrs. Birch.
I just want to say that I think this is an excellent idea. I'm a state employee who has to fill out one of these, and we do it electronically. And the really nice thing, just for everybody, is that the next year when you fill it out again, it's all there. And so if nothing's changed, you just kind of have to go through the whole thing and say, oh, yeah, that's still right, that's still right, that's still right, and then sign it at the end, and it takes you about a minute, and you're done. So I'm really excited about this.
Maybe you could provide some guidance to the school system staff on how to implement this, based on your experience with the state.
I think that who you're going to go to is the State Ethics Commission, because they're the ones who have the form online for the state. So that's who your resource is going to be.
So it's kind of like TurboTax ethics form.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Did we ever make a motion and second this? Okay. So long ago. The discussion's over for us. How about public comment? Seeing none, there's a motion on the floor that's been properly made and seconded. All those in favor? Motion passes 7-0-0. Item 4.08 is the non-discrimination policy AC, third reading. Dr. Arlato, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend approval of policy AC, subject to final correction for style and format.
Any discussion? Any public comment? The motion on the floor properly made and seconded. All those in favor? Motion passes 7-0-0. Item 4.09 is the Non-Discrimination and Anti-Harassment Personnel Policy GAGG, third reading. Dr. Olato, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend approval of policy GAGG, subject to final correction for style and format.
Is there any discussion? Any public comment? There's a motion on the floor that's been properly made and seconded. All those in favor? Motion passes 7-0-0. The last policy for today is item 4.10, Employee Complaints Policy GAHH, third reading. Dr. Olato, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend approval of policy GAHH, subject to final correction for style and format.
Any board discussion? Mr. Jackson.
Not really a lot of discussion. I just want to make a comment. Since this is the last the last policy we're going to talk about today. Thanks a lot to the entire team. We kind of have gotten through 6 months of getting through policies and regulations under Dr. Olato's leadership, and I really appreciate the time and effort as we spin up for the Maryland State House kind of coming back. I know things are going to somewhat slow down a little bit, but I do appreciate the level of effort in getting us to where we're able to go through 3 or 4 policies in a board meeting and actually approve them. So thank you.
Is there any public comment? There's a motion on the floor that's been properly made and seconded. All those in favor? Motion passes 7-0-0. Our last action item is item 4.11, and this is actually an information to action item. Do I have a motion to move the Davidsonville Elementary School third-party playground project from information to action? All those in favor? We now have an action item. Dr. Olato, your recommendation, please.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend approval of the Davidsonville Elementary School third-party project playground equipment.
And we have a presentation.
A brief one. For the record, Lisa Seaman Crawford, Director of Facilities, and with me.
Greg Stewart, Senior Manager of Planning.
Josephine Johnson, Assistant Principal, Davidsonville Elementary School.
Jennifer Bell, Davidsonville Elementary PTO President.
Davidsonville Elementary School would like to purchase and install playground equipment in 2 locations, and as you are aware, the third-party project requires board approval. The PTA has sufficient funds to pay for the equipment and installation, and the principal and the PTA
Or an O, but it's okay.
PTO president have both stated they support the project, and it does meet our facility standards. And we're open for any questions.
Is there any board discussion? Any public comment? We have a motion on the floor that's been properly made and seconded. All those in favor? Motion passes 7-0-0. Item 5.01 is the Minority and Small Business Enterprise Utilization Report for fiscal year 2014. And this is a review item. We don't have a presentation, correct? So if there's any board questions? What? You're good? Any public comment? Okay, thanks for walking up.
Thank you.
Item 5.02 is also a review item, award of contracts. We have 2 awards on the list. Is there any board discussion? Is there any public comment? Okay. And last, we have 3 consent items, items 6.01 through 6.03. Do I have a motion to bundle them and move them from information to action? All those in favor? We now have an action item. Dr. Olato, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend approval of award of contracts as listed on today's agenda, 6.01, 6.02, and 6.03.
Is there any discussion? Any public comment? The motion on the floor that's been properly made and seconded. All those in favor? Motion passes 7-0-0. That concludes this portion of our meeting. I have a few announcements. Before we move into closed session, the next Board of Education meeting is Wednesday, January 21st here at 7 p.m. The next Board Policy Committee meeting is Wednesday, January 14th at 8:30 a.m. The next Board Budget Committee meeting is Tuesday, January 13th, 5 o'clock in Conference Room 2. And the board will hold a public hearing on the superintendent's recommended FY 2016 operating and capital budget at 7 p.m. here in the boardroom, and sign-ups 7 p.m. on Thursday, January 8th, and sign-ups will begin at 6 p.m. And I just want to clarify that we will not be adding a second hearing based on the snow cancellation yesterday. So this Thursday, tomorrow, is the one opportunity for everybody to come and comment on the budget. Mrs. Nally.
I would like to motion to close the, to make a move to close the meeting to discuss the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluation of employees or officials over whom this public body has jurisdiction, or any other personnel matter that affects one or more specific individuals, and to consult with counsel to obtain legal advice on a legal matter, and to conduct collective bargaining negotiations or consider matters that relate to the negotiations.
All those in favor? Motion passes 7-0-0. Meeting is adjourned.
Very good. You did a great job. I don't know. I mean, it was really hard.